Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it is the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the M.O.A. broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, as usual, we've got a phenomenal show lined up for you today. All kinds of good stuff coming straight your way. Let's pull up the show highlights. This is episode 41 of the M.O.A. broadcast, the Make It Out Alive broadcast. And as you know, folks, this starts out as a radio show, and after it gets broadcast on the air, then it goes through the various different podcasting channels and platforms, and that's where you find it on Spotify and Apple and Amazon and iHeartRadio, all that kind of stuff. Or you can go to the RSS feed, or you can get it at www.gearconvoy.com, which is our website. But just want to thank everybody for all the support. We have had a really good outpouring of support and a lot of good listeners, a lot of good feedback, and we appreciate all those emails you send us. When you send an email to info@gearconvoy.com, whether it's some feedback or a question about the show or a suggestion, an idea, whatever, we appreciate that. When you leave comments or reviews on the various podcasting platforms and stuff, we appreciate that. Every little bit helps us to grow. And, you know, the whole concept, I'll keep this brief, but I mean, the whole concept for this was to just be a show. I don't want to say about nothing, not to mimic Seinfeld there, have a good jab at them. But, you know, it's about news, it's about current events, and it's about situational awareness and preparedness, but without being partisan and without being biased and being politically neutral and so forth, without getting into all that stuff that people just love to argue about. In short, it's about having, a good time with the show, and a good time for me. Now, some of you are going to agree and enjoy it. Some of you are not, and the show may not be for you. I understand that. That's great. That's the beauty of the open market, or whatever you want to call it. We've got tons of options now. But just wanted to say briefly, thank you for all the support. We appreciate it, the feedback, all of it. So thank you very much. We are going to move into episode 41, show highlights, folks. New York Attorney General Tish James, or as some call her, Big Tish, has been indicted for bank fraud. This is going to be, and again, we keep this politically neutral. This is just crazy because these are some of the very same charges that similar charges that she went after Donald Trump for. So we got tit for tat going on here, and it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. So Big Tish has been indicted. We have more on high intensity training, or HIT training. Got a lot of emails on those, or a number of emails on that. Some of them were a little explicit, Jim Bros and all that kind of stuff. But without getting into a debate, we'll dive into that a little bit more in this episode and explain a little more about it. And if you don't agree, you are wrong. Okay, a Missouri man mauled by a bear while texting pictures of the bear to his family. Another Oregonian loses to the wilderness, and two New Jersey sisters go for the Intercontinental Championship belt versus a Florida airline worker. All this and more in today's episode of the Make It Out Alive broadcast. Folks, it is officially fall here in the hills and mountains of Southern Oregon. I don't know about where you're at. The transition, I've lived in a number of places around the United States, and I mean, really good things and bad things, I guess, to say about all, but mostly good things. This is a humongous piece of land here in the USA. And I'm not being patriotic about it, just simply saying it's a huge piece of land, and we've got a number of just fantastic different little, climate zones that you can find yourself in, depending on what interests you and what pleases you. I currently live in the high desert of Southern Oregon, and it is I didn't think I would like it at first, but I do. It's definitely interesting, though. The winter is longer here than you might suspect, being in high desert. And we have had temperatures below freezing at night for the last, I don't know, probably a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know, somewhere in there. Whenever it becomes fall here, it is like a switch is flipped, and we will still have 70, 80 degrees during the day, but it gets cold at night. So going to be burning wood soon, and Bacon and Kobra. So for those of you that don't keep up with the show or follow the show, Bacon is our white pointer dog. Absolutely fantastic, beautiful, great, good boy. Dog we've had for a while. And then Kobra is our black shop cat that we recently rescued off the street. He is acclimating nicely, and the two, Bacon is not really a fan of other animals, and I've detailed in the show a number of times about how he and I have been attacked by, stray and wild dogs out here on the reservation. We live on or near an Indian reservation here in southern Oregon, and there are just all kinds of stray dogs and dog packs, feral dogs, whatever you want to call them. We've been attacked multiple times, drawn blood, had to use pepper spray and other measures to protect ourselves. So he has become a little less inviting of other animals, but he and Kobra are finally starting to get along. They're both males, and Kobra is about 8 pounds and 4 ounces, something like that right now. Bacon is about, 55, 56 pounds, somewhere in there last time I weighed him, which has been a while. But Bacon has a dog bed with a heated insert in it, so it's got a heated bed. And Kobra, of course, being a cat, likes heat, so Bacon would never be interested in curling up with another animal, but Kobra has kind of, scooched in there for a little bit of cuddling and and body warmth, and they're finally starting to get along, so it's kind of funny. In a couple of weeks, we'll be burning wood, well, maybe about a month or so. Usually in November, start burning wood, so I'm sure they'll both enjoy being curled up in front of the fire. But that's the good news, folks. The cold temperatures make the hot coffee in the morning taste that much better. And hopefully some of you are listening to this program while you're either getting ready for work, on your way to work, or at work, enjoying that first cup of a delicious hot coffee for the day. Because there is definitely something magical about that first cup of coffee, the way it hits, and just everything starts to activate and turn on and get going, and the juices start to move. And I've had a number of, this has really been fun because I've had a number of emails from listeners about the different types of coffee making methods. I've talked about using French press, talked about using AeroPress, talked about using making cowboy coffee, Bunn, and so forth. So for those of you that aren't probably my best all-arounder for most situations, best blend of speed, flavor, and all that kind of stuff would be the Bunn machine. And let me check my time here. Where are we at? I don't want to lose. Excuse me. Okay, we got a minute or two. My favorite overall machine for making coffee is going to be the Bunn machine. So for those of you not familiar, pardon me, when you go and get your standard like coffee maker, a Mr. Coffee or whatever in the world brand you get at your box store or online or whatever else, most of those coffee machine designs, they're not bad. I don't really care for some of them, but they're not bad. It's just some have, some are superior and some are not as superior. Let's put it like that. But they basically have a tank. You pour the water in, and then it starts to boil this tank, and the water turns into steam, and it goes up a little tube, and then it drips down slowly into your brew basket or whatever it's called, and where the coffee grounds are contained. And then as it drips through there, it makes coffee and drips into the pot. And it takes you 10 to 15 minutes to make a pot of coffee or whatever it is. The way the Bunn works, it's almost like a hot water heater. Okay, that has a thermostat or on there, and what happens is it has an internal tank of water that is always hot at about 190, almost 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So what happens is when you put your brew basket full of coffee or grounds in there the night before, the morning of, whatever you do, I like to do it the night before, so when I wake up in the morning, I can stumble over to the machine and just pour in the water, and then by the time I go and either rinse my face, use the restroom, whatever it is, a couple of minutes later, there's a whole pot of fresh, hot coffee there ready to go. But the Bunn keeps that reservoir of hot water ready to go. And when you pour over, however much water is in your pot that you pour into the machine is how much water is displaced out of the Bunn machine. And then it forces up to the top. And instead of just having a little, a nozzle or a little hole at the top, it has like this little fire sprinkler nozzle with like 4 or 5, 6, whatever it is, holes. And that distributes the water like a sprinkler. And because it comes out so fast, it saturates those coffee grounds much better. And folks, I'm not getting paid by Bunn, make no mistake, but I've been a huge fan of them for years. They're those coffee pour over, I think they call it pour over type machine. You get a better saturation, so therefore you get better extraction. You're going to get a deeper flavor, and because the whole thing is done, it makes a whole pot of coffee in right around 5 minutes. So by the time, like I said, you either brush your teeth or wash your face, comb your hair, put on your outfit or whatever it is you do in the morning, You come back there and the coffee pot is ready. So you don't really need those brew pause type features where you can pull the pot out and it stops dripping coffee until you pour a cup and put it back in, because in 5 minutes or so you got, and if it's a half pot, it's about 2.5, 3 minutes is all it takes. And it gets a much better extraction because it's got a nozzle in it that sprays out the water, and you get a better, saturation and therefore extraction of the coffee. I like a dark, deep French roast type coffee. You choose whatever works best for you. But if you haven't ever tried, if you're in the market for a new coffee machine, check out the Bunn. They've got a number of different sizes and different types of models. I think they're all around 100 something bucks. That may sound like a bunch, but folks, they're worth it, in my opinion. Do as you see fit. Do the research. Watch. I'm sure there's videos on YouTube and everything else. But the Bunn overall is, in my opinion, one of the absolute best machines for making that first cup of coffee. Okay, let's get into our show. Where do we go? We go to New York. New York Attorney General Letitia James' indictment sparks sharp partisan divide. This story comes to us from Fox News. Now, we're not going to get too deep in this. This story has been all over the media for the last 24 hours or whatever it is since she got the indictment came down. Let's just jump in. Lawmakers reacted sharply Thursday to the indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James on bank fraud charges, with Democrats calling it a politically motivated act of revenge by President Donald Trump. A federal grand jury in Virginia charged James with bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. The indictment centers on James' purchase of a home in Norfolk. Prosecutors allege she falsely claimed it as a second residence to secure better loan terms before leasing it to tenants. James has denied wrongdoing, describing the charges as a political retribution. These charges are baseless, yada, yada, yada. The president's own public statements make it clear his only goal is political retribution at any cost. Folks, let me jump in here real quickly. And again, we have talked about this a number of times, but we remain politically neutral here at the M.O.A. broadcast. We're not going to take one side or another. We will, however, take shots at both sides. And just so you know, I mean it. Guys, you can't you can't watch the news a single day without, and Trump does this on purpose, in my opinion. He does this on purpose, without him saying some sort of outlandish thing that immediately whips the other side into a frothing frenzy. And they are going crazy over this some little thing that he said. Meanwhile, other things are happening that they're totally either ignoring or whatever and getting all worked up on. But you can't help but laugh at the things the guy does. Whether you're laughing out of humor or disrespect, I don't care. I happen to think a number of things that he does are either hilarious or a little bit insane or a little bit of both. So we're going to take digs at both sides. I will say that it's a shame. I kind of miss the days when, and this doesn't have to go back that far, but I remember in high school we would have debates in class and so forth. You could make a statement about either political side, if you want to narrow it down that far, without it becoming a partisan either endorsement or condemnation of that political party. Not everything has to be political. You can make comments and statements and observations about political events without it being a political endorsement or condemnation. And I will say, not tooting my own horn at all, but I've received a number of emails and messages from folks that have appreciated the fact that we have remained politically neutral here and just give you the facts. And if I inject my opinion or some humor, I clearly state it as such. We're not going to become a partisan show here and start, touting one side or the other, or becoming a shill for one group or the other. Guys, it doesn't have to be that complicated. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why I shy away from political topics. I've mentioned this in other shows. When looking at stories like this, I frequently have to go to 3, 4, or 5 or more different stories just to get the facts, because so many of these news sites and sources are so politically biased. And I just want the information. I am an adult. I can make my own determination about what I think it means or how it affects me or whatever. Just give me the raw data. Okay, that's what we try and do here at the M.O.A. broadcast. My point was, it's ironic because Letitia James, if you go back and look at her political statement when she was leading up to getting elected to, or whatever it was for the attorney general, she made it clear that she was going to pursue and sue and or prosecute Donald Trump. So now it's happening to her, and the foot's on the other shoe, so to speak, and she's not so happy about it. So you know what? In the end, famous last words from James and a lot of her supporters: quote, no one is above the law, end quote. So at the end of the day, let's hope the law is followed, whoever you are, whatever you did, because she was indicted by a grand jury. That means a grand jury found enough evidence and information to support this indictment. Now, what's going to happen? Who knows? She should, like anyone in this country, get their fair day in court. I just can't help but laugh at the irony, and so let's move on. It is what it is. Okay, what happened? Let me get a sip real quick here. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing fantastic. While we're in New York, let's go ahead and cover this one to show you that New York hasn't lost its edge to Chicago or Portland for wanton lawlessness and violence. And this isn't funny, but it's insane. New York neighbor fatally stabs a 69-year-old man in his back inside Chinatown apartment. According to the cops, this article comes to us via the New York Post. A deranged knife-wielding attacker fatally stabbed a 69-year-old man in the back inside a Chinatown apartment, police said Sunday. And I'm going to butcher this name. My apologies in advance. Feijian Zheng, 50, was busted for murder for the stabbing, which unfolded at 7 Eldridge Street around 3:50 p.m. on Saturday. It's unclear how Zheng knew the victim, whose identity hasn't been released pending family notification. Zheng apparently lives a couple of blocks away from the scene of the alleged crime. And New York, guys, this is the other thing that whenever I prepare for the show, I take a lot of pride in not just throwing a bunch of crap on here and rattling off statistics or news stories and trying to get some interesting stuff and then pepper in some real world application, preparedness, etc. There are so many violent stories. In fact, the one that we're going to do next, I'm going to go ahead and skip it because we're not going to have time. And frankly, I'm tired of seeing it. I was going to cover it last week. I'll read you the headline, though. Scottish woman dismembered in heinous Los Angeles murder. And the husband is charged, according to prosecutors via ABC News. This guy, allegedly, him and his wife got into some altercation. I'm sure there was a lot that led up to this, but apparently, according to the newspaper, this particular isolated event that led to the actual violence was him upset with her over the fact that she had gained weight after having a child or whatever it was. I don't know. It's a little unclear. But allegedly, somebody killed her and chopped her up and left her in the apartment while the dad took the kids over to the grandparents' house. And, there are so many of these stories every week. And I'm not going to sit here and lament the fact that now everything is so violent and so bad and so extreme. It is, but that's not the point. Guys, you got to be careful. Situational awareness, we've talked about this a number of times. We're going to keep moving here. But situational awareness is being aware of your surroundings and not only being aware, but constantly thinking, what if this was to happen? Like if you're on public transportation, to me, that's one of the ultimate, the supreme test of situational awareness was like riding the subway in New York City. Or the L in Chicago or one of the other places. For some reason, public transportation just seems to bring it out in people. But, being situationally aware, it just means being aware. Don't let yourself get too lost in that phone, in that book, in your headphones, whatever it is you're doing. If we could leave one M.O.A. preparedness moment in the show today, it would be that situational awareness. And again, I'm not saying that would have saved this lady or not. I have no idea. The article isn't extremely clear on how everything went down. But folks, as the old saying goes, watch your 6, which means your 6 o'clock, which means your back, watch your back, keep your head on a swivel, always looking around, whatever you want to call it. Be aware of your surroundings and what's going on, because I can tell you this, I have witnessed many, many violent acts by some real psychopaths and just some angry, violent people. It happens so quickly. It's so fast that if you're not paying attention, and even if you are paying attention, if you blink, you'll miss it. And I've reviewed some of these situations that I was there for, these violent acts that I was actually present for. And you watch them back on tape. Sometimes, depending on the recording device, the human moving may be faster than the tape records. And it's that fast. It looks like a series of motions instead of one fluid motion. So, pay attention to what you're doing when you're out there on public transportation, on the road, walking down the sidewalk, in a restaurant, whatever. Because I read hundreds of these stories a week. And people go crazy and go bonkers and attack in restaurants, post office, wherever. So just be aware. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We go to Missouri. A Missouri man mauled to death at an Arkansas campsite after texting family photos of the bear. This article comes to us. It's actually a compilation of two articles, one out of the New York Post and one out of some other one that I couldn't find a good attribution for. A Missouri man was mauled to death at an Arkansas campsite just 2 days after texting his family photos of a bear wandering near his tent. Folks, that is almost the epitome of situational awareness. If you see a bear wandering and circling around your campsite, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and tell you from personal experience, the solution is not to take pictures. The solution is to get the heck out of there. No disrespect to this guy. This is not far from where I grew up. I grew up in southern Missouri. Used to do a lot of hiking. A lot of hiking in areas down there. Saw black bears, copperheads, water moccasins, all kind of wildlife, because Missouri is a little bit wild when you get away up into the them thar hills. Although this happened, I think, technically in Arkansas. It was somehow the guy was related to close to Missouri, the Ozark National Forest. Okay. The 60-year-old was camping at Sam's Throne. I have never been there. I'm not familiar with that one. In the Ozark National Forest near Mount Judea, when he stopped responding to his family's messages, the Newton County Sheriff's Office said. His son called police Thursday after not hearing from him for a couple of days. Long story short, the deputies arrived. They found evidence of a struggle. The man's truck and campsite were abandoned. There was evidence and signs of a body being dragged into the woods. The bear got him. Okay. The initial article, that's why there were two articles. The initial article, they hadn't made that determination yet, but after further examination, they decided the bear chomped down on him and mauled him to death and killed him. Unfortunately, and I hate this, I'm sure the family may feel different. No disrespect. I just hate it when the animal has to get put down too. I think there are times when that's appropriate. Sometimes animals are just kind of animal, and I don't know why, like especially crocodiles. Do you really think that makes and I could be wrong. I'm not a biologist or a whatever. Do you really think that changes crocodiles' behavior once they've had a human to eat? Chances are they would do it again no matter what, because they don't care. They don't have those type of feelings. Anyway, I could be wrong, whatever. They did put the bear down, unfortunately, after they found drag marks leading from the campground into the woods. His body was found several yards away with severe injuries consistent with that of a bear mauling. The Arkansas Crime Lab completed the autopsy, and they determined that it was a bear that had killed him. I think it was pretty obvious. But anyway, that's unfortunate. That's situational awareness, though, folks. There was an episode or a situation in, I think it was Yellowstone a couple of years ago, where there was a tourist, same kind of thing, maybe not quite as dramatic, or maybe more dramatic, really. He is sitting there taking pictures of this bison as it is charging at him, and it was a bison or it may have been a bear, I don't remember. But the thing is either charging or advancing upon this tourist, taking photographs, and it kills him. And he's getting photographs, shutter by shutter, step by step, of the whole thing taking place. Guys, that is the opposite of situational awareness. You got to be thinking. Just the other day, I was out walking bacon and had to use pepper spray again, and I had almost let myself, I checked my phone. I walk at a pretty fast pace, right around 4 miles per hour. Excuse me, both because I like to cover ground. I'm about 6 foot tall, so I got fairly long legs for my size. And I know Bacon likes to keep moving. He's a dog, because if he was on his own, he'd be trotting faster than that. And I pulled out my phone, and I got the leash in one hand, and I'm checking messages in the other hand. And when I look up, there was somebody that had parked in this parking lot, and they had their dog that was tied off in the back of their truck, or was sitting in the back of the truck or whatever. And when we got about 10 feet away, it was quiet till then. And then it just woke up and just jumped out of that bed of that truck. And I wound up just shoving my phone in my vest pocket. It was kind of cold that day, so I had a vest on, and wound up using pepper spray. But if I hadn't had my pepper spray at the ready to deploy, I would have got chomped on probably again. And I can tell you from personal experience, multiple times in the last 18, 24 months, that is not a pleasant experience. And this was a big, muscular, so-called pit bull as well. And, it would have been painful. The pepper spray is interesting, though. So, folks, if you ever use pepper spray, remember this. In most cases, it is not an instantaneous thing. It's not like shooting somebody with a big 45 or whatever it is, like you see in the movies. Pepper spray on humans, and I've used it on both, humans and animals. Give yourself between 5 and 15 seconds in a lot of cases for that pepper spray to activate and really go to work. The minute you deploy that pepper spray, And again, you got you get your local laws, whatever, use it in accordance with the legalities and so forth. If you have to for self-defense, though, it's recommended to go on the eyes, the mucous membranes, the nose, mouth, all that kind of stuff. Get it on there and then immediately start creating distance. Back up, retreat, whatever you got to do. Slow down to create distance between you and whatever the aggressor, whoever the aggressor it is, human, animal, whatever, because you want that pepper spray to start working. And on average, you want to give yourself 5 to 15 seconds for it to start doing its thing. It isn't always immediate. Some folks and some animals, it can be, but frequently it's going to take a few seconds, and you want those few precious seconds can be critical. Okay, you want to give yourself time to stay away from that. Let the sauce start to marinate and do its job. Then I can promise you, in most, not all, but in most cases, your aggressor is going to start to lose interest very, very quickly as they begin to deal with and evaluate their new painful situation in life that they're now encountering. So, anyway, that's that. Where are we on time here? Okay, we're going to go ahead. We'll get to the Oregon hiker story in our next episode. We're going to try and get one banged out here again in another 2 to 3 days. I want to talk about the high-intensity training, okay? I got a lot of emails from guys that are like, oh, the high-intensity training is bull crap and blah, blah, blah. It's no good. Guys, hang on, let me get a sip here real quickly. You are free to work out however you want, however you like, however frequently, however intensely you want. If you go back to our last episode, episode 40, we delve into the high-intensity training, or HIIT, as it's sometimes called, HIT. There are a number of bodybuilders that have been associated with this in the past, and proponents and opponents and so on and so forth. We discussed it a little bit more in depth in the last episode. What it boils down to is you're doing one set to failure. It has to be a supremely intense set to failure. And the reason why is this. We don't know. There's no accurate, consistent way to measure any level of intensity on a set. Let's say you're doing barbell curls, okay? That's the standard example that gets used frequently. A barbell curls, you don't know how to stop at 87%, 92%, 75%, or 98% intensity. The only two levels of intensity that we can consistently measure accurately and over again. And guess what, folks? Even this changes as you learn to dig deeper, as you become more acquainted with high intensity and the pain and the discomfort that comes from intensity. It's like an old friendship. You learn more about it in all of its ways, and you can dig deeper. So what's very intense for you in the beginning will be different 2, 3, 4, 5 years later. But anyway, we can only measure zero intensity, which is no output, no work being done, no movement, whatever, zero intensity, and 100% intensity, which is maximum intensity of effort to failure, okay? So we don't know exactly at what point that growth switch, or whatever it is that you want to call it, gets flipped and triggers growth in your muscular system. But we do know that if you go to 100%, that is for sure hit it. Whether it's 87%, 90, 92, whatever, if you go to 100, you have surpassed that and you have activated this growth mechanism, if you will, in your body, okay? Very simple. And I didn't come up with all this. I've learned this over years of reading and research, going back 20, almost 30 years. Okay. You can do whatever you want, believe whatever you want, but I am telling you, this method works very well if you are willing to put forth the effort and endure the pain and discomfort that comes from going to failure. Now, so what does that mean? You need to decide if that type of training is right for you. Because just like being a quote-unquote tough guy, everybody thinks they can train to failure, just like everybody thinks they're a tough guy until it's time to do tough guy stuff. And then people find out they may not be quite what they thought they are. And there's no shame in that either. I can tell you this. I have trained, I spoke about this in the last episode, easily dozens, if not well over 100 and something people over the years. Doesn't make me an expert. You believe whatever you want. Again, I don't care. I've seen enough, and I've got this recorded in notebooks and so forth. I know what does work to a certain degree. Very, very few people are able to push themselves to the level of intensity that it requires for this to be a successful method of training for them on their own. More are able to do it if they have someone pushing them, but very, very few people do it on their own, and very, very few people I have trained over the years already went to failure, truly to failure, even though they thought they did. Now, going to failure again doesn't mean you're sitting here, you're shaking and going crazy and having convulsions and seizures and losing all this. It simply means when you can no longer complete a good, clean repetition in clean, safe form through a full range of motion. That's just about it. But the complexity begins the longer you do this, the more you learn how to push yourself, the more discomfort you can endure, and so on and so forth. So people that are not going to like and enjoy high-intensity training, people that don't want the best results, people that like to, if you like to go to the gym, if going to the gym or working out is a social thing for you, you are not going to like high-intensity training. Probably because you get in there and you move from one exercise to the next, almost like it's circuit training, and we'll discuss that in another episode. You don't sit around. If you like to sit around and talk with your buddies and you have 2 or 3 workout buddies and guys you hang out with, if you like to look at your phone, if you like listening to music, if you like having snacks or, drink water, sitting there just sipping water and hanging out and multiple trips to the water fountain, if you like flirting or looking for your next romantic love interest, then while you're at the gym, then high intensity training probably is not going to be for you. However, and let's just finish that off. If you can't stand pain and discomfort, if you don't have enough drive to push yourself through said discomfort to get to that goal on the other side, high-intensity training probably isn't for you. If you can drive yourself, push yourself through that pain, if you don't care about making friends at the gym, if you don't care about picking up another male or female companion for romantic purposes while at the gym, if you want the most efficient workout in the least amount of time and to stimulate the most growth with the least amount of working out, then high-intensity training might be right for you. So that's what I say. It's not one of these things where this is the only way, but this is a very effective way applied properly to get the maximal gains for growing both strength and muscular size while working out in the gym using weights. So there you go. And then I want to stress one other thing, the importance of keeping records, because with high intensity training, almost above all, progression is critical. If you don't keep records for, record your workouts, if you like to go in there and just do the same kind of thing with different intensity or add a little bit or take a little bit of weight away here and there, you're not going to get the best results. If you do this properly and you record your workouts and you use maximal intensity, you should be getting stronger almost every single time you go into the gym. And if you doubt me, I feel sorry for you because you're wrong. And a little bit of humor, but it's true, folks. And again, we'll dig into that in another episode. We'll get a little further in there. But wanted to hit it again because we got a lot of good feedback and questions and emails and so forth on that particular segment. Okay, folks, we head to Florida. A quick sip. All right. This story comes to us from the New York Post. Drunk New Jersey sisters arrested after meltdown for being kicked off Frontier Airlines flight and attacking the airline worker. According to body cam footage, allegedly, via the New York Post. Folks, I don't know what is in the water down there in Florida, but it must be 80 proof. These 2 sisters at the Orlando airport went DEFCON 1, or is it DEFCON 5, on a Frontier Airlines gate agent after being told to get off the flight. And let's just say things got hot. Or maybe a little bit of turbulence in the air. I tell you, Florida is just one of the, it's a cultural phenomenon down there. They just can't be normal. Okay, let's dig into the story here. 2 sunburned, drunken New Jersey sisters allegedly attacked a Frontier Airlines gate agent after the duo were kicked off their flight at a Florida airport, according to body cam footage released on Wednesday. Kira Lyons, or Leon, I don't know, Lyons, 22 years of age, and Maura Flores, 31. Apparently these are sisters. They were arrested when they were accused of being intoxicated and causing a disturbance on their Garden State-bound plane at Orlando International Airport on May 15. The reason this went, we'll get to the minute. It took place back in May 15, but their case has just been taken care of. Body cam footage shows an Orlando police officer approaching the airline worker who was seated on the air bridge's floor after the alleged assault. According to the airline worker, quote, "It was the short, skinny one first that pushed me, and then the bigger one, her sister, pushed me right after," she told the police. She was told to call her supervisor and the police after they refused to exit the aircraft and were, quote-unquote, screaming and allegedly causing a scene on board. After a while, though, the two sisters agreed to be escorted to the jet bridge. As they were leaving, the worker claims Lyons unleashed a verbal attack on the flight crew and got in her face, saying, You fat... I said, "Thank you," the victim recalls. Other sources on social media claim bystanders then got involved and began shouting, "I paid for extra legroom, not extra attitude. Who the are you looking at? I'll upgrade you straight to class. You... Ma'am, please stop. This isn't the WWF. It's Gate 27. Oh, I'll show you a Royal Rumble, you discount flight with skanky, nasty." When she was facing me, she pushed me and then turned around. And the sister came up and shoved me again, adding that it caused her to trip over something on the floor. This is the flight attendant speaking. Flores said the flight attendant asked her sister if she was intoxicated, to which she said, "Yeah, I had a few drinks." She then stated, "I had a couple drinks, but I'm literally supposed to walk for graduation tomorrow." Lyons is heard telling the officer while sobbing, "I'm a Division III athlete. It just sucks." Lyons and Flores were both charged with first-degree battery and disorderly conduct in the second degree for allegedly assaulting a gate agent, according to a filing in Florida's Ninth Judicial Circuit obtained by People. The airline employee suffered minor injuries from being shoved. Both sisters had their cases closed and were referred to a pre-trial intervention program on September 17. The outlet reported, once the program is completed successfully, criminal charges against the defendant are dismissed. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of the M.O.A. broadcast. Remember, survivors, don't wait until you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.